name is Alyssa Mahadeo, journalist and community reporter, and I dedicate my time to searching for the stories that matter the most. Positive, uplifting, and inspiring stories that spotlight the challenges and obstacles we conquer to become the people who we are today. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of all the fairy tale lifestyles that people seem to be living on social media. Girl, you did not wake up like that. I'm interested in the genuine connections, the honest opinions, and the real uncut version of your true self. This show is about keeping it 100% real, deconstructing who we are and what we're all about. Join me as we sit down with individuals to discuss the personal struggles, the many challenges, and the moments that define us on this journey of self-discovery. Let's be real, life isn't fair and people make mistakes, but every opportunity is a learning experience. Let's discover the truth together right here on Real Talk. Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Real Talk. I am your host, Alyssa Mahadeo, and here I am every Friday, in studio having real, open, honest conversations with awesome people. So today I have special guest, Mahfuz Chowdhury, and he is here today to talk about his book, Project Reinvention. So today we're actually going to be talking about reinventing yourself. Awesome. And what that means, what it means to be a millennial, and what it means to navigate, the path of life as of right now, what we're dealing with, what people deal with every day, what struggles and things that we overcome with. So, Mahfuz, thank you so much for coming into the studio today.
Thanks for having me. That's one heck of an intro. I feel pressure to sound smart now.
I think that...
Gotta be all intelligent,
See, here's the thing. When someone tells me that they write a book, I'm just going to automatically assume that you're smart. Because for me, when you write a book, that's a big deal. You had to sit and dedicate, time and effort to doing that. So it's that in itself is a smart move.
Yeah. And it's odd because I've been working as a full-time marketer for the last 6-7 years, and I've just only recently been started calling an author.
Okay.
And to me, I'm still trying to get used to that.
You're
but
I'm
I like
not
that
an
it's
author.
associated with the word smart. I almost wish it was the smart writer instead of author. That'd be fun.
Smart writers, authors. I think authors are pretty smart people. So
thank you.
So your book is called Project Reinvention, Social Time of a Millennial. And I wanted to start the show today with defining what a millennial is. So what is the definition of millennial and what generation is it? So I know we're also known as Generation Y.
Yeah.
I think the rough timeline is from 1977 to 1980 and then into the early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
So what is a millennial?
It's an excellent question, first of all. I think just by definition, it's a certain age range, right? I think the oldest millennial is, 35, 36 now. And it's interesting because the definition of millennials either means a positive thing to some people or a super negative thing, they're the lazy, entitled, right? The spoiled brats that got everything handed to them. So it's very interesting when you ask people the definition of it, what it means to them. Yeah. I think to me is it is an age range, but it's something that the different generations, such as the baby boomers, have started defining it in a way that it actually sparks an emotion, which is a little strange.
Okay.
Right? And to me, it's when I first started my reinvention journey, I started going to a lot of seminars. I started listening to a lot of podcasts. I just started attending a lot of stuff, trying to work on myself. And I remember when I was sitting there. Now, it's a little different now because millennial became a little cool, right? It became a cool thing.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't know this term until, again, recently. People are just you're a millennial. I'm like, what does that even mean?
But 5-6 years ago, when I was attending these events, I was amazed by how not a single speaker that go on the stage would ever talk about millennial in a positive way. It was always when they would say millennial, the crowd would go silent, right? It was a scary thing for everybody, and it frustrated me.
Yeah.
Which was actually, I'm kind of probably segueing into your next question, but it was actually my inspiration into starting Project Reinvention because I decided that instead of letting other speakers that are on stage destroy our generation and steamroll over it, I just figured out I'd just get up and start it myself. So I started an initiative called Project Reinvention.
So millennials also, we're the most tech-savvy generation. We've grown up essentially with the internet. We know exactly how to use it. I think kids now are literally born with smartphones in their hands. So
it's true.
So because we're so, adept at this, even with using social media, we learn the social media platforms. They think we're a little bit narcissistic because we post selfies of ourselves. Yeah. But I'm honestly, I think it's a good thing because I think it sparks that confidence that millennials seem to have.
Right. And the thing about technology in general is as much as people like to think technology is what's spoiling the generation,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's technology just does a really good job in exposing it,
Yeah.
right? If you have a very negative mindset on life and outlook, you're always the one complaining on Facebook. If you're positive, right? Like, you
Yeah.
know, everyone
Yeah.
has one of those friends. I know you thought of one right now.
I'm sure I did. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
So, I mean, I know that's a thing. And a lot of people have positive outlooks, and they use that as a way to spread positive energy. There's a lot of Instagram accounts today that have happy thoughts, positive quotes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing by how it just does a really good job in exposing that. So it's a culture shift. That's
Yeah.
just where things are going.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to not get emotionally devoted to where the culture is going, but to be part of that. And I think that's been a big part of the conversation that not only happens in business, but just on every day-to-day life.
I think we learn a lot about people from their social media platforms. So if you follow a person on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Snapchat,
Yeah.
you see different personalities across different platforms. And you get to learn a lot more about these people that you don't spend every day with. So I think even that, in a sense, in the millennial aspect, is like, okay, if I'm looking to hire someone, I'm looking for this kind of person. Now, if I go on YouTube
Right.
and I see a person who's doing videos on this, is really outgoing, has a great
Yeah.
personality, has everything that I kind of want in my company, I can now reach out to this person. This person didn't apply to this job, but I'm like, I want you.
Yeah, it's such a big advantage, right, Alyssa?
Mhm.
Like, I think about what it took to apply for a job back in the days, and I remember. And actually, I'm speaking at an event next week where I'm speaking to newcomers to Canada about getting jobs, and I'm excited because I know how hungry they are and passionate they are to get out there. And one of the things that I make them realize was just a few years ago, you had to go to the receptionist table, drop off a resume, and just pray to God, right? Pray to God somehow it makes it to the HR department or the
Yeah.
president of the company. Now, using the device that's in your pocket, you open up LinkedIn, you have a conversation directly with the CEO of the company. And it's amazing that things have changed so far that way. But the question is now what? Like, what can you do to separate yourself from the million other people that are messaging CEOs and asking them for a job and position?
And it's so funny that you even mentioned that, because I was actually talking to a friend the other day about resumes and cover letters and things like that. I'm like, do people even still send resumes
Yeah.
to people? I'm like, are they still even relevant? Because I
Yeah.
find that a resume is not really a good portrayal of who you are.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't really sell your personality
Right,
in a
and the
resume.
fit, right?
You sound really boring, actually,
Yeah.
on paper, if you think about it sometimes. I'd
Listen,
be like,
I'm offended.
I sound boring on paper. So I don't think I
It's
sound...
true.
Honestly, I don't think anybody sounds really amazing on paper.
It's hard, right?
It has to
You
be,
try to jazz it up with colors, bold fonts, but there's only so much
you're
you can
about
do.
us. You're like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
this person, I'm this. But I'm like, I don't believe you
Yeah.
unless I've met you in real life and
Yeah.
I know exactly what your personality is
100%. And the thing about resume is, like, what does that intersection even mean? Like, who cares that you played volleyball or you collect Pokemon cards,
Or
right?
you
Like,
won the
Yeah.
Best Student of the Year award.
right. Like, it's hey, that was a big deal for me. Come on, Alyssa. I mean, to me,
Academic achievements.
yeah, it's true. It's a big deal. To me, it was a big deal because of being able to have those conversations with people and what that was like and what it took to achieve that. I think the big word that's becoming really cool and really sexy to talk about is the fit. Right?
Okay.
Like the fit. Are you the right fit for the company? And you're right. It's hard to express that in a resume.
Yeah.
How does someone look at a resume and say, I feel like you'd be a good fit for a company? You just don't know. Everyone's trying to build a culture of what their company is about, right? Like, you
Exactly.
guys have an awesome culture here. I walked in, guys behind the cameras, you guys are awesome. You guys are just super friendly. I felt the culture. But the next person you hire is going to run through the back of your mind. Can we maintain that culture with that energy and that person? And that's something that needs to become more and more popular in the hiring process.
Exactly, and I even find that a lot of the bigger CEOs and business companies, when they're looking to hire someone, they're looking for something different. And that's what the millennial generation, I think, has to offer. It's always something new, different, exciting,
Yeah.
and the ideas that kind of come out of just sitting there and brainstorming.
Right.
Like, I think about things, like, you see those videos on YouTube and Facebook and everything all the time, and you're like, this person did this, and they decided they were going to take this to the next level, and I'm like, who thinks
Yeah,
about these things?
yeah.
And that in itself is so amazing to me.
Right, and everyone likes to think it's by accident,
No.
right? Like, they did a one lucky video at the one lucky time, and that's why they're big and famous. But they don't think about the strategy and the thought process and the team gathering that they have to figure out how to make that 1-2 minute video
Yeah.
that succeeds. Like, it's amazing how much happens behind the scenes that a lot of people don't pay attention to that ends up becoming the next YouTube star or the next Instagram star. It's fascinating to me.
Viral video culture. That's where we
Right.
live right now.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I want to talk about you. I want to talk about a little bit about your background and where you've come from. So tell me a little bit about your life. I know that you're an immigrant.
We're starting right from the beginning.
We're
Okay.
starting right from the beginning.
Let's
I
go.
need to know who you are.
Yeah.
So I want to start with, you are an immigrant to Canada. How old were you when you came here, and how much money did you guys have?
Yeah, I mean, I got to do the math. I just remember I started in grade 4, just to give you an idea of how young I was. We had almost no money. I remember I have 3 other brothers, my 2 parents, 6 of us. We were living in a 2-bedroom apartment, just trying to make it work, just trying to make things happen. And my dad was doing so well. We came from Saudi Arabia. My dad was doing so well. He graduated from the university. He graduated with a degree in economics. My mom was very comfortable with not having to work because of how well we were doing. And they gave it all up to give me and my brothers a better education. And it was tough to see them come down here and not only have very little money, but also the fact that my dad had a degree didn't matter based on the standards in Canada. And the fact that my mom had to go out and start doing housekeeping at a hotel, my dad had to start doing working at the flooring department at Home Depot. It was a very difficult time, but it gave us such a drive. And I see this in a lot of immigrants. I think it's becoming more popular than ever, where they come here with a laser focus on what they want to do and why they're here. They have an objective. And I find, and I'm sure you have a similar story, yeah? I'd love to hear your story. I'm going to kind of turn the table around and ask you questions.
Don't worry, I got
but
things to share.
I want to hear yours because I see a lot of drive, and I think that allowed us to really work our way up. But what was yours? Let me hear it.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to continue talking a little bit.
Story.
We're going to hear about the Alyssa story, but we are going to talk about a little bit more about your story, my story, and all of the things in between when we come back. So you guys are watching Real Talk. Keep it locked.
Think you have what it takes to bring value to the community? The TCN TV network is expanding and now accepting TV show proposals. Here's an opportunity to build celebrity status and become part of an elite group of community advocates that are focused on building, strengthening, and empowering our community in a positive way. Are you interested in embarking on a new adventure? TCN TV is searching for people interested in opportunities to change the conversation and pave an unforgettable legacy. If you feel you have something of value to offer, send a written show proposal to shows@mytcntv.com.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Welcome back. You are watching Real Talk, and I am your host, Alyssa Mahadeo. Today we are on the show talking about reinventing yourself. We're talking about millennial culture. We're talking about all the things in between. We're talking about, the struggles, the challenges, things that we just deal with in our everyday lives. And today I have on the show Mahfuz Chowdhury, and he is here to talk about his story and also his Project Reinvention. So Mahfuz, we were talking about before we went to break about immigrant parents coming over here and basically establishing a life for us. So I do also come from immigrant parents.
Yeah.
My parents are from Trinidad.
Okay.
And it's funny that you asked me about it because I had asked my parents about it the other day, about their own story and what it was like to come over when they did.
Right.
And, they were telling me, it was so difficult for them to even get, landed to come over here. They came in over as, refugees and the
make it past the security.
country sent them back. Yeah. Then they had to deal with all of the back and forth. And I was like, would you guys have ever come here if you guys had, kids or stuff back in Trinidad? And they were like, no, we would probably still be living in Trinidad. And I think about that. I'm like, I can't imagine growing up in Trinidad.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm Canadian. I was born here.
Yeah.
That's I know everything here. I've lived my life in luxury if you think about it here. So I'm like, for me to think about having to struggle like that is
it's crazy.
Over my head.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to go back home once in a while, right? Fly back to Saudi Arabia. I mean, I'm actually from Bangladesh, but I lived in Saudi Arabia. So just flying back home to visit other family and seeing how little means they need to get by, how well they're doing with their life with just how little they have. And what's inspiring to me, I go there sometimes for 2 weeks and I come back as a different person, because what's inspiring to me is that they thrive on love and support. right? They thrive on the fact that everyone's doing their part in the family and contributing and helping him out, as opposed to like, hey, if that one guy, that one son does well, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's a team effort.
Yeah.
And I brought that culture back in with me, and my brothers have too. So we collaborate quite frequently in figuring out how to help the family as a whole. And I think that's very important and very underused. It doesn't happen as often here as I think you'd like to see.
So when your parents came over here and stuff like that, so your dad had this degree now, he couldn't use it. What did he end up having to do for work?
So he was doing flooring at the Home Depot department, a lot of heavy lifting, which actually concerned me a lot. Eventually worked his way to kind of like a management type role in that position, which is less lifting, which is always nice to see. But it's lit such a fire under me and my brothers that we're all just busting our butt. Like we're always grinding, we're always working. To me, 5 p.m. hits, I shut off my cell phone and I start grinding on some other stuff that I want to do. Like the work doesn't stop at 5 p.m. for me because I always think about that end point of wanting to give back to my parents and wanting to do all that stuff. So it's a big burning desire for me. It's a big thing that when I speak at events, I tell people discover your burning desires. And what's interesting to me is a lot of people will usually line up to talk to you after because they want to open up to you privately, and it's never money. Right? Money's never that thing that says, oh, it's what makes me go. It's what they want to do with that money, what they want to do with that time, what they want to do with the family members that they want to help. You hear a lot of different stories. They're all relatable in one way, but the good thing is it's never the money that drives them when they really dive in and think about what it is, why they want to reinvent themselves and do all these great things.
That's cool. And I think they're also touched by the fact that they can relate to you in your story.
Yeah.
So where is it that you went to school when you came here, and what was it that you wanted to do while you were in high school, college, university?
Sure. We moved around a lot trying to find a place to live, so I bounced around between a couple high schools. I went from John Fraser to Clarkson, and then I went to University of Toronto. Now here's a thing I had to learn the very hard way. I'm not a great student. I'm just not. I was getting crushed at University of Toronto, not because I didn't understand the materials, is I didn't want to. I was at school for my goal of being in school was to finish school, and that was it. So I got kicked out. I got put into academic probation.
Oh no.
And that was actually probably the darkest moment in my life. I was on academic probation. I had no experience outside of just working at Tim Hortons. I was making coffee for a living. I also came out of a 3.5-year relationship. There's also a couple dark moments where family members were passing away. It was a very difficult time in my life, and I think that was the pivot, the moment where I turned around and saying I need to do something and get a bit more control of my life. So I, speaking with some of my friends, my best friend Mike, we grew up together. We worked at Tim Hortons together, and he gave me that drive to want to start over and start working on myself. So I went back. I decided to try Sheridan College because that had a great co-op program where you can get experience. And while I was at Sheridan College, I think a lot of good things started happening for me. I think it just gave me an opportunity to start building a network and have the drive where I finally felt like I wasn't there just to be there.
Yeah.
Right? I felt like I was there because I wanted to learn. And I fell in love with marketing there as well, which is one of the things that I just continued pursuing ever since.
I think it's important that you mentioned that you said that you wanted to be there, because I think a lot of, even now when kids go to school, like I see these kids who feel like they're forced to go to school, they're forced to go to university, they're forced to go to college. And honestly, going to university and college is a great thing, but you need to go there and do the right thing.
And want to be there.
And want to be there as well. So like, when you were first in university, what were you doing? What was your program?
So I went into business administrator because, it's a safe thing to do. Like, come on. You don't even know what you want to do. Just go into business.
Yeah.
It was easy to get into, lower grade standards. It was a little cheaper in tuition fee, even though I ended up collecting $30,000 in debt while being at university. It was just something that I was there for because my friends were moving on to university and I didn't want to be left behind. So I was just kind of following along and hoping I figure out what I fall in love with. A big moment for me when I went to Sheridan was my very first class, because I continued doing business, right? Being the guy that's just going with the flow. My very first class was a marketing class, and I remember my teacher came up there, and what was really cool about that class was instead of just saying, here's marketing 101, let's go from page to page, let's actually talk about my experience with marketing and why I'm the right person to teach this course. So I sat there and I listened to his stories and what he does for my day-to-day, and I was like, I want to do that. Right? Like bringing creative ideas to life, taking it out to market and presenting it. I was like, that sounds exciting. And that was the moment that I started pursuing marketing and I changed my course.
So after speaking to your friend, what were some of the steps that you decided that you started to change, or some of the shifts that you started to make in your life in order to kind of turn things around for yourself?
Yeah. Excellent question. There was one thing that I used to always whine about around that time in my life. I used to always say life isn't fair, right? I used to,
but
right?
That is so
right?
true.
And it's like everyone thinks it, but no one says it in like a bold way. And I kept whining about it, like no tomorrow. And it was actually like, I wonder if I would hang out my old self because of how much he whined, and I don't think I would. I would always say life isn't fair. And then down the road, through conversations with friends like Mike, I started learning that life not being fair is actually good news. And that meant, like, instead of it being an equal playing field with no advantages, not being able to do anything with your life, you can actually turn things in your favor and take action, right? You can actually, if you don't like where you're living, you can get up and move away instead of accepting your place in society.
It motivates
you. Yeah. So it gives you that drive. Yeah, 100%.
Because even if you think about it now, think about if your life was perfect back then. Where do you think you would have been today?
I don't think I'd be very hungry. I don't think I'd have a drive. I think I may get bored and make mistakes on purpose just to get a thrill out of it, right? Because when things are going too perfect, something's not right.
Yeah.
Now, to answer your question about what I did to take action is, I mentioned that I went to seminars. I was frustrated because they're bashing millennials. I started my own initiative. I called it Project Reinvention, which is also the name of my book. And I started just going from events to events, speaking to college students and saying, listen, don't listen to the big seminars, the big guys out there that have, get $1 million to go up on stage and talk, because they're not saying the right things to you specifically. And I started sharing ideas of what I was doing to change things around, and I started becoming a bit more of an entrepreneur around that concept. I started building it.
Okay.
I launched a website with Project Reinvention, and it acquired 2,000 subscribers in 9 days. So it made me realize, and this was in 26 countries, so it made me realize a lot of people universally were relating to these stories, and they're subscribing and trying to build a relationship to learn more. It was very interesting. And the moment I knew it was working was the very first event I spoke at. One of the girls lined up, as I mentioned, they line up to talk to you after. One of the girls lined up, and she was the first one in line, and she had tears running down her eyes, and she said, I wish I met you 3 years ago, because this is what I needed to hear. And I found out that she was in an abusive relationship. She was down on herself, and she just wanted to work her way out of it. So it was very inspiring to me. And that was a moment with, like, every fiber in my body, I knew that this was a good thing for us.
This is what I need to be doing. You mentioned, so Project Reinvention, is it a collaboration of stories, or is it mainly stories that you've told?
Yeah, it's interesting because Project Reinvention kind of wrote itself, right?
That's what I was thinking.
And the thing is, it's really just going back and recalling a lot of the things that happened in my life and creating a linear story from beginning to end. To me, I think a lot about this is how cool is digital relationships, right? You think about, like, I add you as a friend on Facebook. Over the years, I see what car you buy, what school you go into, the fact that you're working at this awesome
That's
studio.
What I'm saying. I don't see you every day, but you still know everything about my life.
And you share your passions, good poems, and all of a sudden we start bonding and we build a relationship over time. So I tried to bring that into this book, where someone gets to walk through my timeline, almost like I'm walking them on my social media account. Yeah, and so every chapter walks through a different status update that I posted on Facebook, and then I share the story and the lesson behind it that allowed me to move from A to B.
That's really cool. So are these actual status updates that were on your Facebook timeline?
Yeah. There's some embarrassing grammar errors in a lot of them, but I couldn't Hollywood it. I couldn't fake it, so I had to put it out there regardless of how bad or depressing that it was.
And I can appreciate that. This is called Real Talk.
Real Talk.
To keep it real. And I even, like, you mentioning that, I can relate, because I've gone back on my social media time and been like, Alyssa, why did you post that?
Right.
So we are going to take a quick break, and we come back. I want to hear a little bit about this heartbreak that you're talking about. So we'll be right back, guys.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Discover the incredible India.
Welcome back. You are watching Real Talk, and I'm your host, Alyssa Mahadeo. You know, keeping it real, keeping it 100% every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Guys, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you like what I talk about, guys,
like their stuff.
Like
They're
their
good.
stuff. Like my stuff. We are talking today with Mahfuz Chowdhury, and he is talking about his book, Project Reinvention. But most importantly, he's talking about the struggles, the things that he's gone through, the things he's dealt with, the real, we're not going to say the word, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your social life, your dating life, you know, questions like dating. Are you married?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to get married? Do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids?
Yeah.
These are all the questions that my friends ask me that we discuss on a day-to-day basis. But I know that a lot of, especially guys, I find guys don't talk about this thing because they're just like, no, I'm busy out here. I'm living my best life.
We got that ego,
and
right?
then girls are like, but am I running out of time?
Yeah.
Like, am I getting too old? Like, my mom was already married and had me at, like, my age. So it's like, so what are the kind of things that run through your mind when people ask you these things?
Yeah, it's I love that you asked this question. I talk about this with my friends all the time. I don't think I've ever been asked this in an interview or an event I spoke at, so that's really cool. It's interesting to me. I mean, based on my story, is I've come out of a really long relationship. I've had a huge chip on my shoulders where it was tough for me to trust others. Mm-hmm. And when I finally overcame that, I got engaged, and the engagement ended. Okay. So I went through this whole cycle of good and bad happening. And it's interesting to me because at that time, I was so under the gun, pressured by the facade of, hey, you got to get married at a young age. You gotta do this. You gotta have kids at this age. You gotta get a house. You gotta start doing all these things. And I was so under the pressure that is what had me sweating every year, saying, okay, I'm a year older. It hasn't been done. Maybe this is the year. And it was just such a tough time for me. But as I started growing out of it and coming out of that engagement and finding out what struggles I went through, what was interesting is when someone else finds that you went through their story, they start sharing it with you. Yeah. So I felt like a failure at first because I was like, oh, I'm the only one I've ever known that came out of an engagement. I'm a failure. I suck at life. But then others said, hey, you know, my brother actually had 3 failed engagements. Another one said, hey, be lucky that you came out of your engagement in time because my one happened after we got married and it's a lot more expensive in lawyer fees. So there's a lot of conversations. And I started learning that there's so much push just from media in general about happiness being accustomed and aligned with being married and needing to have that in your life. And I write this and I ponder about it a lot in my book where I think the definition of what success is different for every person. And for some people, completely understandable, it's about getting married and having kids. Yeah. Right? But some people it's not. Some people are career driven. Some people are more family focused in their own family, like their parents. Some people are success driven and wanting to achieve things. Everyone has their own passions in life. I think it's important to figure out what yours is. And if it is about getting married, specifically that you chose it and not because your parents said it. You know how many people I know that are...
You're running out of time. Yeah. You need to get married, Mahfuz. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. You, my mom would love you. She's probably giving you thumbs up right now on this TV screen.
Be like, this is what I wanted him to talk about. I just want to sit him down and tell him, here's a nice girl, marry her.
She put you up to this. It's fun. It's a fun conversation because you find a lot of people that are under pressure, and when you find the root of why it's happening, it's usually through pressure from others. Yeah. So I encourage everyone to discover what is it that they want, and is that what they want. It's not to say I don't want to get married one day and have kids. It's to say that the lack of that will not result in me feeling like a failure. Right? The lack of that will not turn me away from saying I can still become successful in my definition by doing all the things that I want to do.
So when you came out of your engagement, how did you feel? And also, like, what did you learn from the experience?
I learned that, believe it or not, it was a lot easier to get over the engagement than it was with my 3.5-year relationship 5 years ago. Okay. And that's because I've grown up, right? I've kind of matured. And to be honest, I want to say this in the most bold and polite way possible, but I really hope that everyone gets to experience heartbreak once in their life. Once in their life, not 2.
And you're not the first person to tell me this.
Because the amount of things that you learn from eating dirt, being at the ground floor and working your way back up, is you just become a stronger person. You find out what you're vulnerable to. You find out what you want and don't want and how you come out of it. So that the next time you get pushed down, whether it's in career or family or another relationship, you know how to bounce back better.
You've got the tools to
you can recalibrate and bounce back, which is something that I share quite often, is once you figure that out, you know how to do it. If you've never experienced it, that one time you get stung, you're down and out because you don't know how to recover from it.
So how has that now changed your relationships now going forward? And, like, like even being out there, putting yourself out there, dating people, going out with friends, socializing, things like, how has that changed now?
It's I would say it's healthier. I think is the fact that I was able to come out of it as a positive person and stronger. I think that it's also allowed me to see who's behind me as a social circle, right? Who's there. Like, I have a very small group of friends, but I've also had a large group, and eventually I just trimmed it down out of, those whiners, the old Mahfuz whining guy back then. I got rid of them, and I hang out with a small group of friends that are extremely supportive. Even writing this book, I wrote this book in 14 days. 14 days.
Bruh.
But I spent 5 hours a day religiously. And you know how I was able to do this? Because my friends continued to support it. When I was in a writer's block, they would sit down with me and they would bounce around ideas that got me inspired to turn on my laptop again.
Yeah. So, question 2, because I had a friend that actually went through this the other day, but
I should meet your friend.
Right? What kind of questions do you ask on a first date, being a guy? And I say this being a guy because I heard it from a girl's perspective.
Wow. I don't know how to answer that. I don't come in with a question that I want to ask. I want to get a feel of how relaxed I am around them. The one that I got engaged to, I fell for her very quickly. And the reason that happened was the first date, I didn't wear this fancy suit that's shining bright blue on camera. I wore a t-shirt and a baseball cap and shorts. Because I wanted to not get rid of that formality that comes in a first date. And I wanted us to be relaxed, and the fact that she dressed really nice, right? And
she would, because
you're
like
and I almost felt bad because we're in a classy place, and here I am, like a scumbag wearing a cap and a baseball. It was cool, but she was so down to earth and so relaxed that I felt at ease, and that was the feeling. So more than the question, the feeling of ease and comfort, I think, was a big deal, and that allowed me to have further dates with her and more enjoyment.
And I like that. And I feel like that can be applied to not even first dates, but even just other relationships.
Yeah, 100%.
When you meet people in general, like, I noticed that you posted actually on your social media that you don't like networking events.
Yes.
Why is that?
I hate networking events. I really do. The idea of getting up 7 in the morning paying $5 for a really bad breakfast, right? Like old eggs, and then getting out there and networking with people that don't like networking. They're not there, and I say this again with another bold statement. 95% of the people in every networking event suck at networking. They're terrible at it. They're there for, hey, how many business cards of mine can I get rid of? Because I just want to make it rain business cards and try to have people call me. So I wrote this article about 2 different people. Person A is the one that goes to networking events, makes their cards rain. Before you even get a word in, I'm handing you a business card and moving to the next. There's no relationship being built. And then they go home and they wonder why no one's calling them. If it was up to me, I would call networking relationship building. If people went in with the mentality that the only thing I want to do at those events is build relationships, not even give cards, ask for cards so you can continue that relationship, it's a whole new ballgame and a whole new experience. And I talk about my first ever networking failure in this book, and a lot of it comes down to the fact that I just felt like nothing was coming out of it. And I had that terrible networker mentality, and I changed it very quickly. I was very humbled by that experience, and it changed me.
So in building relationships too in this type of setting, right? Kids still go. Like, I feel like a lot of people are like, oh no, it's about who you know. You need to be networking all the time, right? What kind of questions do you think you would ask in a relationship building setting?
Sure. I mean, number one is ask questions, right? Like, not what kind of questions, just ask. Because a lot of people go in with, hey, maybe they'll be impressed by my tie, so let me talk about my tie for 20 minutes. Oh, no. Right? Or like I just got a glossy business card. They're going to love me,
it's
right?
Matte.
It's matte material like my car, right? Like, it's ridiculous. It's terrible, Alyssa.
Yeah.
So, I mean, number one is ask questions. Don't make it about you. Get to genuinely know them. And this comes back to what we said about fit earlier, is find out if they're a fit for you, especially if you're out there to network for a job. Find out if that company is somewhere you see yourself working. So ask the right questions to just get to know what they're about and who they are as an individual. I think that's crucial.
So we are going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear more from Mahfuz. I want to talk a little bit again. I want to show everyone your book, actually. This guy has a Bitmoji on his book. How cool is that?
Cartoon. Cartoon it up.
So when we come back, we're going to continue this real hot conversation, all right?
retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity in our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk, and time is just flying by. Honestly, we're having a great conversation. I'm totally enjoying everything that we're touching on today.
Fun.
It's honestly, and I love that again. It's real, it's raw, it's authentic, and it's who you are. It's a very good portrayal. See, like, this is better than your resume.
It is. She proved me wrong real quick.
So I wanted to talk about things that people don't really address, and what that is would be things that make you uncomfortable.
Okay.
Especially in a business setting, in a social setting. And I find that especially millennials, while we like to do things that are different, we like to explore, we like to travel, we like to adventure, when there's something that makes us uncomfortable, we tend to really not commit to doing it 100%.
Yeah.
So tell me about some times in your life where, there was a situation that was really uncomfortable for you and you didn't want to be there, but you knew that you kind of had to.
Yeah, this surprises a lot of people, but I used to be a very, 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 very shy guy.
See, and I tell you that, and you were like, no, you're not. I'm like, but I was.
No, I hear you. And I should have been able to relate just by knowing that, but yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much more confident I am now, but still shy as heck in the inside. Like, I am such an introvert. It's scary.
I am too.
And yet I find myself being in front of events, in front of big clients, in front of speaking. Even this, right, is I get this thing, what I think everyone has their own word for, which is the mental chatterbox that tries to talk you out of everything. Everything in life.
You're like, I could not do this. I could procrastinate. I can put this off for another 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, if I listen to my chatterbox every single time, I would have been nowhere in life. Nowhere. And the thing is, like, your chatterbox is not your enemy. It's just trying to protect you, right? It's saying, don't do it. You might get hurt, right? Don't talk to that pretty girl across from you. She may reject you, and you're going to be the saddest person ever, right? Like, there's that chatterbox in your head that stops you from doing a lot of things you want to do. And I get him every day at everything I do. But the thing is, like, I'm aware that being uncomfortable is what allows you to grow. And if you're not willing to get uncomfortable, you'll always be in your comfort zone. And there's so much more that you could achieve just by getting uncomfortable. So I always remind myself, and I learn over time, you just get better at managing it, right? I've been to a talk show in the past on Rogers TV, and I broke out sweating. I went to the bathroom because I felt like I needed to vomit. I was terrible. Now, given you're a cool host, and that made my life easier.
Thank you.
But I was a lot more relaxed, but I still had the jitters, right? It still happens. So the chatterbox is something that happens a lot. I think, to answer your question, I get uncomfortable in any public setting that involves meeting strangers or talking to them, but I just do it because I understand the value of it down the road.
What is something that you struggle with when you're in that setting, especially? Like, is it approaching a person? Is it eye contact?
I think it's just failure. I think it's not knowing that you're not yourself when you're nervous. Like, you mumble more, you stutter, you talk too fast, you're sweating.
You forget what you were even trying to say.
Yeah, and it becomes really awkward, and then your friends are going to make fun of you. Like, all these things happen, and it makes people not want to take action. I work for a digital marketing firm called Candybox Marketing, and if I let my chatterbox do its part that day, I would have never got the position, because I was looking for a co-op position while I was at Sheridan College, and I looked up just digital marketing firms that I wanted to work for because I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I came across a profile of an individual named Daryl Keyser. He's a CEO of Candybox Marketing, and I saw he went to the same school, same events, same professor. So I said, oh, so much in common. I did what any good millennial would do. I just creeped him for hours. Right? Just creep and learn everything you can.
That's how you learn about people. You're going to find everything about them on the internet.
Now, here's what was interesting is when I sent him a message, he called me immediately. And like a good millennial, I don't want to answer that phone. But I answered it because I needed to get this job. And he said, meet me in 30 minutes at Starbucks. Now, at that point in my life, I was broke, there was no bus around to come and pick me up at that time. I couldn't afford a cab. I didn't have a car. No one was home to drive me. I was at that position where my chatterbox was screaming at me saying, delay the meeting, cancel it. You may not even get a job because he just said, I can help you.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean anything. So what you can do is maybe just make an excuse and not go. And after a lot of pondering, I realized that I was running out of time. So instead of making excuses, I opened up my closet, I grabbed my favorite pair of running shoes, and I sprinted the full 30 minutes to get to that place. I made it there with just a minute to spare. I was sweating buckets, which I still think is a good thing because it made me look desperate for the job. And I met Daryl Keyser that day, and since then he brought me on board, and I've become a big part of the firm.
What did you tell him when you showed up there? Did you tell him that you ran there?
I told him years later because I didn't want to break that chance. And he never tells me if that was the reason I got the job. He never will tell me.
Yeah.
But I keep bringing it up because I do think that was an important thing. But it was the fact that I took action, right? Like, if you're in a situation where your head's saying, don't do it, and you take action, what a thrill that is. And more often than not, good things come out of it.
This show is an example of that, actually.
Yeah. Is that right?
Grant can tell you. Grant will tell you. Grant,
we got to chat after this. Come grab a seat, sir.
Grant was like, listen, do you want to do the show by yourself? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
Look at me today.
You're crushing it. You are crushing it.
Thank you
Seriously.
so much. Do you have any regrets? Is there anything that you wish you could go back and redo?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to sound extremely arrogant, but I don't think anyone should have regrets, and I don't. Because especially if you're in a good place now, especially if you're in a better place than you were even yesterday, if you have been able to rise to where you wanted to go to, or at least closer to it, it means those mistakes needed to happen for you to get there, right? For me to eat dirt a few times because of the fact that I got kicked out of university, or the engagement didn't work out, or something just didn't happen in my favor, it would help me mentally figure out how to do things right the next time. So I don't have regrets in terms of the, events that happened in my life, and I really don't think people should. I think it's, if they didn't take it as a learning experience, that's a regret. If they didn't take it to do something about it.
Are there people in your life that that you see have actual regrets, and it's sitting, it's just sitting there and it's holding them back?
All the time, and that's why I speak at events, right? And that's what I try to share. I try to share how much more powerful you become when you let go of those regrets, and usually I do that through storytelling. So here we are today. I'm not just telling you, here's 5 ideas, run with it. It's here's 5 ideas, and here's my story of how I dealt with it. And I hope that those stories relate with them enough to do something about it. The best thing in the world, even more than money, the thing that I get the biggest high from is when someone sends me an email years later and saying, I remember hearing you speak a couple years ago, and that was the moment something went off in my brain and I did something about it, and I'm doing well. And I get those emails every day. It humbles me, and it also makes me realize that what I'm doing is the right course.
What overall impact do you want to have in the world?
It's interesting because it's selfish and unselfish. And it's unselfish because truly I want to see people let go of those burdens like I've done, right? And I wasn't able to. And the hardest part for me, being the shy guy that I used to be, is I remember sitting in the University of Toronto looking around at a class of 500, and I just wish someone would reach out to me with a helping hand. I just wish that one person, the guy beside me, would have been like, hey, you need a hand? You look like you're not doing well. And not just in class, in life. Help me get out of this pain that I'm in. And I didn't get that help. So I wanted to be that help for other people. So my selfish, unselfish goal is wanting to be that helping hand for people, especially the silent ones. They'll never raise up their hand and tell you they need help.
Because they're like me and you. We're introverts. We're not really trying to, that social content. We're like, they're probably going to judge me, so let me not say anything. Right.
And I definitely don't want to do it publicly, so I'm going to wait till I can line up and meet him. So I always encourage them. I was like, hey, if your question is personal, I'll be around as long as I need to. Come line up and chat with me. And the shyest people will tell you stories that amazes me that they opened up to me after talking to them for 20 minutes.
It's funny that you mentioned that about having someone, lend that helping hand to you, because I've actually gone back to my university and I've taken part in their mentorship program, alumni mentorship and stuff like that, and it's because I wanted to be that bridge to the working world, because I know that when I was a student in university, I had no idea what I was trying to do at that point. I was like, I'm in this program, I'm gonna do this, that, and the next. And then I got there, and then I came out of it, and again, that in itself was its own journey, and then even getting to this station, and I was like, but I've had that experience, so now I can now take my knowledge and share it with someone who is in their first and second year. I'd be like, this is what happened to me, kind of thing. I don't want this to happen to you, but if you're dealing with this, this is kind of how you could possibly navigate it. And it's the kind of feedback too that I get from the students that I talk to, they're just like, I'm so glad that I was able to talk to you because I really had no idea what to do. No one was telling me. And that's the thing about coming from immigrant parents.
Yes.
Your parents don't know the school system. They don't know how school works here. They don't know how university, college, high school application deadlines.
It's a culture shock, yeah.
Yeah, it's a culture shock for them. So they have no clue how it works. So they can't even advise you on what courses to take, what path to take.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they go with the default, hey, we want you to be an engineer, right? Accounting,
a
doctor.
lawyer.
Yeah, 100%. We all hear it. And it's so cool that you were able to actually do something about it and provide that mentorship. I think it's really, really good. And, like, I've watched a lot of your episodes. I love what you guys do with this, with the H2H. I've watched a lot of your different segments, and it's amazing that you open up so much, which I'm not surprised that people relate to it out there. That are watching the show and they say, hey, I can relate to Alyssa's story and I wish I got to know her more. So it's awesome that you open up like that. I think that's powerful.
Thank you. There was also another question too that I had seen. Like I had seen this on a segment actually the other morning on another station, and they were talking about millennials not being called millennials, so not being referred to even in mainstream media as millennials.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Because I know you've basically branded.
I did what I do best, and I creeped your profile as well. So I saw you ask that earlier, and I was like, I have a feeling she's going to ask me that today. So I put some thought. I had to wrap my head around that, especially if I have the word millennial in my subtitle.
That's why I have to ask you.
So my thought is this. I don't think millennials do not like being called millennials. I think they just don't like what it's defined as. I don't think they like being called lazy, entitled. But also, on the other spectrum, there's a lot of businesses that I see every day that wants to hire the digital natives, the young guys, the marketing millennials, the guys that just entered the game. So they're looking for millennials. I bet you at that time, they're not going to complain about being called millennials because they're getting the job offers.
Yeah.
So I think it really matters in what is defined to people. And believe it or not, the more I go out there now, especially with how many books have come out about millennials and how it's become a big conversation piece, I think millennials become a really cool thing that people can take advantage of. I threw on my book fully as a millennial. I'm excited to be known as a millennial because I want people to be able to see that and recognize that that's the perspective that I'm trying to narrate in.
So, is there something that you've accomplished thus far, and you're most proud of?
I'm proud. Now the book is definitely up there.
Obviously, because
it's a big thing because I'm proud that I was finally able to take my journey and package it between these two covers, right? Like I'm proud that I was able to think that far ahead. I don't think my journey's over there. I think if you ask me even a day later, I might have a different answer, but I think the accomplishment really just changes over time as we go through. But I think the book's been a really big deal, not because of the fact that it's a book that I published, but the fact that I was able to finally take action on it. It's something that I sat on for 3 years. In fact, just before I wrote the book, this was a big inspiration. A friend of mine sat down with me and said, what happened to that book thing that you were talking about?
Oh, wow. And it's
I
worse
felt,
when your friends remember.
He called me out, and I'm so glad he did, because I was like, you know what? I'm going to start right now, and I had to prove him wrong.
Yeah.
There's a big reason why I finished it, but he was right. I slept on it for a long time. But now, to say that, I also want to say that because I waited 3 more years, I have so much more to add into this based on the challenges I went through. Because the last 3 years have been so dramatic, including the engagement, that I wouldn't have been able to include if I wrote the book 3 years ago.
I have to ask this too, because what was your parents' advice or reaction to, again, you coming out of an engagement and then just kind of like, I say living your life, because that's essentially what you do.
Yeah. My dad has a thing that he always says when things go wrong. He says, this is an absolute disaster. and I promise you, it's literally the first thing in my book. It's the chapter is called An Absolute Disaster.
Love it.
Because that is what my dad used to always say, and he would say that over and over again. But as much as my parents were hard on me, including the engagement moment, they were also encouraging in terms of supporting the little things that I do that are good in life, like a good human trait. Like if I for example offered to open the door for someone, or if I offered to be the person that says, hey, let me pay the bill or let me tip, they would celebrate it. It would almost be like a party where it's such a stupid little thing, but it would stay with me. So they were very good at really punishing me and making me feel bad about the bad in life, but they're at the same time, they're like, what do you want to do? And then they would hold me accountable. So when I said I want to be a marketer, that's like heartbreak to parents, especially immigrants, right? No one wants to hear that at first, but when they started realizing what marketing is and they saw how much happier their son was, it started changing their mindset, and they've been super supportive because of it.
All right, we are going to are we taking one more break, or is this it? I'm done. Apparently,
That's it?
This is what happens. I told you I ran out of time again. Time totally flew by. Anyways, I'm going to wrap things up. Thank you again for everyone for tuning into another edition of Real Talk. Please go like, subscribe, watch the video, share it. And thank you again, Mahfuz, for coming on.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
See you next week. My name is Alyssa Mahadeo, journalist and community reporter, and I dedicate my time to searching for the stories that matter the most. Positive, uplifting, and inspiring stories that spotlight the challenges and obstacles we conquer to become the people who we are today. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of all the fairy tale lifestyles that people seem to be living on social media. Girl, you did not wake up like that. I'm interested in the genuine connections, the honest opinions, and the real uncut version of your true self. This show is about keeping it 100% real, deconstructing who we are and what we're all about. Join me as we sit down with individuals to discuss the personal struggles, the many challenges, and the moments that define us on this journey of self-discovery. Let's be real, life isn't fair and people make mistakes, but every opportunity is a learning experience. Let's discover the truth together right here on Real Talk.